Due to the COVID situation, the Borough of Fairhaven's municipal facilities are closed to the public. This meeting is being presented through the Zoom meeting platform and being broadcast from Borough Hall, 748 River Road, Fairhaven, New Jersey. Public participation for this council meeting of April 12, 2021 is available by call-in phone number or through the web conference Zoom. Members of the public will be on mute until public question comment time, which will be announced. At that time, the public has the opportunity to question or comment by phone or through Zoom by the raise hand button and will be called on at the appropriate time. Notice the meeting was included in the scheduled meetings, which was adopted by resolution number 2021-13 and sent to the Asbury Park Press, the Tuver Times, the Hub, and the Star Ledger on January 7, 2021, posted on the Borough website, the bulletin board in the municipal building, and has remained continuously posted as required under the statute. With adequate notice having been given, the Borough Clerk is directed to include this statement in the minutes of this meeting. Allison, roll call, please.
Councilmembers Banahan, Christner Keith,
Here.
Hotch,
Here.
McHugh,
Here.
Neff,
Here.
Rodriguez,
Here.
and the chief, Rich Gardella, and Attorney Cannon are present as well.
Okay, great. And I did text with Councilperson Banahan. He said he would be joining this evening, hopefully soon. All right, I have several proclamations to get through. So, proclamation, Autism Awareness and Acceptance Month, April 2021, whereas a diagnosis of ASD now includes several conditions that used to be diagnosed separately: autistic disorder, pervasive development disorder, not otherwise specified in the PDD, NOS, and Asperger's syndrome. And whereas the Center for Disease Control estimates that 1 in every 68 children in the United States are among the more than 2 million Americans living with an autism spectrum disorder. And whereas early diagnosis and treatment are essential for those affected by autism spectrum disorder, and we support any health care system that works for children and adults with ASD. And whereas during Autism Awareness and Acceptance Month, we recommit to helping individuals with autism spectrum reach their full potential. And whereas each person should have the opportunity to live in full, independent lives and follow their talents wherever they may lead. In April, we recognize those with ASD who are achieving and breaking down barriers. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that I, Benjamin J. Lucarelli, Mayor of the Borough of Fairhaven, on behalf of the Borough Council, do hereby proclaim April 2021 as Autism Awareness and Acceptance Month and strive to promote awareness, acceptance, inclusion, and self-determination for all, and ensure that each person with ASD is provided an opportunity to achieve the highest possible quality of life. Okay, that. Next up, move on. Proclamation, Child Abuse Prevention and Awareness Month, April 2021. Whereas children are vital to the state's future success, prosperity, and quality of life, as well as being our most vulnerable assets. And whereas all children deserve to have safe, stable, nurturing homes and communities, they need to foster their healthy growth and development. And whereas child abuse and neglect is a community responsibility affecting both the current and future quality of life of a community. And whereas communities that provide parents with the social support, knowledge of parenting and child development, and concrete resources they need to cope with the stress and nurture their children, ensure all children grow to their full potential. And whereas effective child abuse prevention strategies succeed because of partnerships created among citizens, human service agencies, schools, faith agencies, and the business community. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that April is Child Abuse Awareness and Prevention Month, and call upon all citizens, community agencies, faith groups, medical facilities, elected leaders, and businesses to increase their participation in our efforts to support families, thereby preventing child abuse and strengthening the communities in which we live. One more for the trees. Whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for planting of trees. And whereas the holiday called Arbor Day was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska. And whereas Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world. And whereas trees can reduce the erosion of our precious topsoil by wind and water, lower our heating and cooling costs, moderate the temperature, clean the air, produce oxygen, and provide habitat for wildlife. And whereas the trees are a renewable resource, giving us paper, wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, and countless other wood products. And whereas trees in our borough increase property values, enhance the economic vitality of business areas, and beautify our community. And whereas trees, wherever they are planted, are a source of joy and spiritual renewal. Now, therefore, I, Benjamin J. Lucarelli, Mayor of the Borough of Fairhaven, do hereby proclaim April 30th, 2021 as Arbor Day in the Borough of Fairhaven, and I urge all citizens to celebrate Arbor Day and to support the efforts to protect our trees and woodlands, and be further claimed that I urge all citizens to plant and care for trees to gladden their hearts and promote the well-being of this and future generations. Thank you. Next up, we have a workshop session. Excuse me, workshop session. And we first up will be Council President Chris Rodriguez with a brush committee recommendations. And before handing it over to Chris, I would like to thank Council President Chris Rodriguez, Councilperson Elizabeth Koch, Jonathan Peters, Michael Cannon, Jackie Rice, James Newell, Allison Morrison, and Rich Gardella, collectively the brush committee, for dedicating their time and energies to helping solve this issue. I thank you all. You did an excellent job. And Chris, please take it away.
Teresa Casagrande too. Administrator Casagrande was part of it.
Administrator Casagrande. Excuse me, Teresa.
No problem, Ben. Thanks, Al.
Okay, so we spent, I think, 6 meetings together. We also put a survey out to the town. I'll go over, effectively high-level results from the survey, and then also what we didn't conclude, and what we did conclude as recommendations. We looked at an array of possibilities, ranging from eliminating brush pickup altogether, about closing the facility where the brush grinding occurs. We looked at a green can akin to the blue and the gray can that we have for garbage and recycling. We also looked at new entryways to the current brush facility, and then also relocating the brush facility. Unfortunately, there's a lot of inhibitors to a lot of those things. I think in the long run, if laws change or otherwise, we might be able to relocate the facility. I wouldn't say that's a recommendation in the near term, but in the long run, I do think if we're able to get that done, that would probably be best to get that facility moved closer to Ridge Road. We've learned that that's not in the cards for us right now due to local state level approvals that would be needed. So 2 main findings from the survey, which many folks around town had participated in. One of them was that there was an appreciation of the process for collecting and removing the brush around town, but there was also a dislike for the traffic, the safety issues, the noise, and so forth. So those were primarily the 2 main findings. So what we did was coordinated, our recommendations into 5 main recommendations for the council to consider. We found that the town was, in support of the brush grinding process. So we'll be continuing to offer pickup, which would leave the current brush site open and operating. So we're not going to close that site anytime soon, though, as I mentioned, if the conditions allow, we will try to relocate that site in the long run. We also supported an action that had already been taken by the council, in that we would recommend terminating the interlocal with Rumson, which is actually still in effect, and we've given them notice, but I think we're pretty close to the point where that will roll off. a lot of considerations were taken into account around that recommendation. But ultimately, the committee was unanimous on that, and I believe the council was also unanimous on that. We also are advocating for changes to the process by which the noise, the size of the trucks, the timing of when the removal occurs, and offering up some of the resulting mulch can be used by residents. We think that that's actually a key result here. So not only reducing by eliminating the interlocal, we're reducing the amount of grinding that occurs by something to the extent of 65 or 70%, but also by trimming down redoing the process, we will be limiting the health and the noise and the traffic nuisances that are out there caused by the current situation. There is also improvement to communication about brush schedules, excuse me. So we've got a couple of ideas about stickers on cans and also notifying landscaping crews. And lastly, the town was actually really interested in enforcement. Many folks have already gotten some notices the past couple of weeks. We decided that we were going to put out warnings to folks that are putting material in the street ahead of when their scheduled time was to be put out. So our code enforcement officer has been issuing warnings, and ultimately would result in fines for multiple offenses. So those were the main recommendations by the committee. So I'm gonna hit pause there and turn it over to council people. Actually, before I do that, I'd like to turn it to Councilwoman Koch, who had participated in all of our meetings. I just wanted to give you a word, give your thoughts here before we turn it over to the council.
You're on mute.
Who would like to speak? Anybody
I
on the
didn't-
council? Any
I
comments?
didn't really know what to expect when we first started our committee. I wasn't really sure how we were going to achieve the desired results, but we had a great group of residents on the committee. We were all very much aligned with our objectives and our goals. We created the survey, which we really appreciated the residents taking the time and effort to fill it out. It gave us a lot of valuable information. And based on that survey, we have the results that Chris just outlined for us. So I would like to take the opportunity to thank everyone who participated. We're not done. I would like to see us put stickers on our trash cans that just remind residents of different dates, because we have several zones and we have several goal dates. So that's something that I will continue to pursue. But I would like to thank the committee for their work.
Wonderful. Anybody else?
I'd like to jump in real quick, Mayor.
Yes. Council President.
Thank you. Yeah, I like that idea of stickers, and Laney, you may want to jump in as well, but in the environmental committee, we were, back when I was on, considering a do's and don'ts along those lines, like some sort of pictograph. I think we found that, we love, in this town, we love to recycle, but sometimes we perhaps maybe recycle too much.
I think they refer to that as wish cycling.
I know some members of the green team and perhaps environmental committee just visited the newly updated Mazza site. So that's our recycling plant. And they got new information on do's and don'ts of updated what can be recycled, what can't. Maybe we can combine this and make some sort of sticker to put on the trash cans as a constant reminder for our residents, which would be good. So yeah, I like the idea of stickers on trash because we floated lots of ideas around apps, stuff like that, but I think seeing it right there, just as a reminder, would be great. One other quick question about the triple grind. That seems great. I know some residents have voiced concerns or wishes about to bring that back. So that could be great. Also, Rich, maybe you could help. Is Rich Gardella still here? Maybe you could help us out. Maybe we could look at what could we use as a town for the fields, the trails? Will we need to triple grind that, or can we just use that initial grind? Some yards for that, just to kind of offset our increasing cost to haul it away. So no, on the triple grind, we can just do the once through and use that stuff.
Typically, we could use the single grind material within the natural area on the trails. In fact, we were in there last week using up the last batch of material we had stored at the site. The triple grind is more effective for if we were going to provide any material to the residents or use it in and around our landscape beds. It's a finer shred, similar to what you see in a nursery.
Would the grinder that we employ for the initial grind be able to take care of that triple grind, or do you need to get different?
Same grinder, they just put a different piece of equipment on the end. It's a smaller opening where the material comes out. So first you grind it, it's more of a coarse material, and then actually you can actually get away with a double grind and have an effective material. So you don't necessarily have to triple grind it.
Nice, so we can keep some of that dust and stuff away from the residents. All right, that's it for me. Thank you.
I have a few questions, if I may.
Oh, yes, please.
Councilman Rodriguez, I was just wondering if you could provide some more color on you looked at possibly closing that facility, and at this point, you're not recommending that. Did the committee do some kind of a financial analysis or feasibility analysis to find out what might be the cost or feasibility of actually, sending the brush out somewhere else and closing the facility?
Yeah, we did, and we just did a back of the envelope, which wasn't really, we didn't really need much more than that, because it takes about a week to clean up the town in each zone, and the amount of time it would take in terms of driving it out, shipping it out, would go either 2 or 3x. So it would take us 3 weeks instead of 1 week. So it wasn't as much of a time issue as much as it was, impractical. And if we then decided to outsource it altogether, then we've got a whole bunch of staff and equipment, which was also another impractical approach. So given the current equipment and leases and human resources that we have, it wasn't really a practical issue. There was also monetary and environmental in terms of driving it. You don't necessarily want to drive a bunch of stuff around. You're driving air around when you fill up truckloads of things, of debris that isn't already ground up. So those are a lot of the considerations.
I guess what you're saying is that because we have equipment already and staff doing that it would be impractical to sell the equipment or eliminate it and instead move to an outsourcing strategy?
Yeah, we could sell equipment or we could cut leases, but we still need the employees for other things. We found through analyzing all of that, because of the fields and all of the other work that they do around town, we weren't going to be able to fire any employees, or if that's where you're going with this.
No, I'm not necessarily going there. I'm just trying to understand why, how it would financially work out if we try to actually outsource it. And I do understand the environmental impact of driving trucks out of town with the brush, but there's also the impacts to the local community in keeping the brush grinding facility there. And those are, I consider those to be environmental issues to be considered as well, even though
Yeah.
supposedly we are allowed to do that. And it's, yeah, it meets the required air and so on. But still, I think it's something to be considered. It's a burden
Yeah,
to people living in that community.
We did consider all of that. Yep. And we also, we need those vehicles also for non-brush related items like plowing and other things. So it's not like we could get rid of the equipment. You know, we analyzed this pretty intensely. It wasn't
I'll say one thing.
necessarily only a dollars and cents decision.
We also, if we outsourced it, we wouldn't have the ability to keep the brush that is multiply shredded and then use it on our pathways and in the fields and in the natural area. We would lose all of that material.
But it's also important to keep in mind when you talk about outsourcing, you're not talking about the pickup part of it outsourcing. That still be done by our DPW staff under any scenario. But to Councilman Rodriguez's point, you know, them with the size of the staff we currently have to pick up brush and or leaves in season and get them back out to a different location to dump would take a lot more time than just bringing them locally. It's also very important to note that, you know, on a numbers game, the reduction to our brush site and to the residents and the amount of brush there is significant with elimination of Rumson, probably about, you know, about 3/4 of the brush on a regular basis was, you know, could be attributed to our interlocal agreement with Rumson. So those residents will see a significant decrease in truck traffic and in the process itself, with just that elimination.
That was actually going to be my next question, Teresa. Thank you for mentioning that, because it does mention here that you're looking to change the process, including, you know, limiting the size of the trucks and the time that they would be able to get in and out of that street. Are you able to provide any idea as to how many truck rides would still be required? And how many days of the year and how many times a year would the residents in that street still be having those trucks coming in and out and the grinding actually taking place?
We think that the number of trucks would be reduced commensurate with the amount of truckloads that we reduced from Rumson. So, you know, somewhere between 65 and 75%. The number of trucks may increase slightly above that 70% decrease, because if we use smaller trucks, it'll increase some of the trucks. But to the extent that we could try to get it down to fewer grinds and fewer truckloads, and obviously trying to manage it so that when children are commuting back and forth to school, which is part of the plan, we would minimize a lot of the nuisance, and we'll also be aided by the reduction in stay-at-home type workforce, which was really causing a fever pitch during COVID, during you know, the past year and a half. Not only that, we've seen an increase in people doing yard work because they're home and they're getting out of their house, and so we had gotten an increase that way. So we've gotten, I think the combination of recommendations should reduce a lot of the pain that community was feeling, and take us back to a time before Sandy when it was just Fairhaven debris only.
But do you have an idea how many times we would have the grind and how many times we would have, how many days of the year, how many days per year would those trucks be going and, you know, would essentially operating in and out? Just some idea, so that there are a lot of residents.
We can get that back to you, but it would be a 70% reduction in any case for the most part. There is a setup, but we're trying to get it down to a single time per year. But again, you know, if we have climate change and we've got storms and we have knocked over trees like the one in your yard, and we're picking up stuff that we don't expect to pick up, I think, you know, it's probably reasonable to ask for a range, which I'm giving you, but you know, we can't give you something exact because we don't know what kind of hurricane season we're going to have. That you know, like I could sit here and try to give you some answers, but I'm not equipped to do that.
And we may actually need to increase the pickup. I mean, I think maybe like, a March pickup might be necessary. People are getting stuff out earlier. So in fact, we may actually have to add to the schedule and something that we need to consider for next year.
Yeah, that I would support that. And we just have some decisions to make. If there's a big snowfall in March and we convert the trucks over from plowing to brush pickup, then we're out of luck in terms of clearing the streets. So there's a decision that and you get a lot of March and April storms this year. We didn't get a lot in April, but we're only a week and a half in here. But you usually see some snowfall in March, and so there's a bit of a decision point. But I agree with you.
All right, I'll let others mention. I mean, I would say that I think that the proposal of improvements is good, and looking to reduce the size of the trucks, and looking to limit the schedule so it doesn't conflict with kids going to school and biking to school. I think there are a number of good proposals here, but I would say that medium and long term, I still think we should be looking for other solutions. It is at least my perspective that it is not healthy to have this operation near so many homes. I know it's been there forever, but there are a lot of homes, a lot more homes today there than there were 60 years ago. And I think I understand the financing aspect that you mentioned of the equipment that exists now, but I still think we should look further into the possibility of possibly eliminating the site at some point in the future. Or looking into going closer to Ridge, as you mentioned, although, I think that creates a whole new set of problems at Fairhaven Fields, which is an area that people are walking and biking all the time. So I'm not sure if that's a solution either. So I'll just leave it at that.
Thank you.
All right. Yeah. All right. Anybody else have any other comments?
I just had a couple of questions. Councilman Rodriguez, my memory is not serving me. Were the results of the brush grinding survey shared publicly?
We'll make those available if they haven't already been made
But
available.
they were
Okay.
on our website for quite a period of time.
Yep, thanks.
My apologies on the memory lapse there. Great, that's good information to have and share with everybody who is interested. Not to think of the idea as increasing traffic to the brush grinding site. And I don't know that it would necessarily have to be there, but one of the things I'm interested in hearing is if you explored a mechanism whereby residents could drop off some of the brush, and whether it was loose or in like, those great huge brown landscaping bags. You know what I'm talking about? They're like brown paper bags and you can put your stuff in it. I'm just wondering if there was any exploration of those opportunities for someone happens to do their work off cycle, or they miss their brush, pickup by a week. Is there an alternative there? Because then it kind of can address some of the increased enforcement of brush and leaf pickup schedules and that, opportunity there.
Yeah, we've thought through that a bit. A couple of logistical issues that prevented us from putting that in as a recommendation, but we did discuss it at length. When a lot of times people will mix leaves and grass clippings and brush, and there's a thoughtful process that the town goes through to make sure that those things are properly separated. Then we've, some of the considerations are manning the site with a person so that we can make sure that that's not happening. We're not getting like commingled stuff that we then can't deal with at all because the county won't take it. The other issues revolve around insurance, which is probably lesser of an issue, but still a consideration in terms of having folks pulling into that site. And then lastly, and by the way, I've thought of this as well as an idea. So the same question that you had, a lot of the folks that contribute a lot of debris into the street are using landscapers, and so it would be difficult for us to card them or identify them and have them from a paperwork or legitimacy perspective dumping in that facility, and for us to verify that it came from a Fairhaven location as opposed to some other location. So, we had, I would say, pretty extensive conversations about that issue, and we decided not to recommend that. If circumstances changes, we'll revisit that, though. I think that's actually something that would be fairly useful. And if there's a better way to do it, we're open to hearing that as well.
Great, thanks. And one final question. Did the committee explore any sort of interlocal with another neighboring municipality, similar to Rumson bringing their brush to Fairhaven and Fairhaven taking care of it from that point? Did we explore whether or not Fairhaven could bring its brush to somewhere else?
We, that kind of dovetails with what Councilwoman Neff had asked earlier, and it would prolong the collection, and because we wouldn't be able to do a reduction in headcount, based on all of the other things we do with our DPW, and it wouldn't reduce our cost for equipment and maintenance. It just didn't seem like a viable option, but we did think about that as well. Specifically, we looked at Middletown and we looked at Little Silver, if my memory serves me right.
Okay, so you didn't get as far as actually getting some sort of ballpark quote or idea about it. It kind of stopped when you realized that it's going to cause us to have to make a longer cart out.
Yeah, it just was operationally impractical.
Okay.
And so
Yeah.
we talked
Okay.
about it, but yeah.
Yeah, well, thanks to the committee for its work. And my understanding is you guys will continue to meet to some degree, and as the new, as the old brush grinding kind of operations are back in play now that Rumson is no longer being serviced.
Yeah, we didn't, I don't think we killed the committee, but we would wait for a period of time, 6 months or a year, to see how the impact of the community is. We'd take the temperature of the community, and we'd also see how things were going, environmentally and on our street safety and that kind of stuff. So we're going to let this play out. We think we're going to get to a good spot, and we'll continue to try to improve.
Yeah, I look forward to the feedback from the community neighbors that live right there. See what their feelings are about this in response. And obviously, it hasn't unfolded yet this season, but I'll be interested in their feedback as well.
Thanks.
Thank you.
And Mayor, I just want to make one last comment. I'd like to thank you for putting this together. I know this has been a multi-year thing, a buildup, and not an easy thing to deal with, or else it would have not been a problem. We would have dealt with it a long time ago. Teresa showed up to every meeting, so thanks for helping guide us through everything, Teresa. Councilwoman Koch was my partner in crime, and I know we went through all the thank yous, but Jim Newell, Allie Morrison, Mike Cannon, who lives in the community there, and former council members, Peters and Rice, I just wanted to say thanks. We kept the meetings to an hour each time we met, pretty religiously, but people gave up, baseball and lacrosse and other family activities. So I want to thank the volunteers who did the hard work. So thanks a bunch, and not to mention all of Rich's contributions. Rich, you were actually, I think the chief came to a few as well about traffic safety. So it was a complete and total team effort. And thanks to the town for getting involved on the survey. There's no survey this town doesn't like to fill out. So with that, turn it back to the mayor.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Council President. All right, next I'll hand everything off to Teresa Casagran to discuss engineering projects update and bid preparations. Teresa?
Yes, I held a meeting, we held a meeting last week at the request of the Engineering and Public Works liaisons to the governing body, to be Mayor Lucarelli, Council President Rodriguez, and Councilman Mike McHugh. Rich Gardella and I put together, a series of information related to the various projects, and there are quite a few going on in the borough. And off of that meeting, we at least wanted to move forward with a presentation tonight by Rich on two projects that have been previously authorized. I did send the governing body a synopsis spreadsheet of just road projects, which gave some information related to the second project Rich will talk about, the 2021 micro projects. And Rich is also going to share his screen. I sent copies of the waterfront improvement and pocket park projects, which was a outsourced engineering, partially outsourced engineering project that came off of a Monmouth County Open Space grant that's quite extensive. It really deals as much with infrastructure issues on our waterfront as it does with the actual pocket park, which really sit above the infrastructure that goes into the water. On a separate aside, which is not listed on this agenda, but very important also, on last Friday at the mayor's request, we had a meeting with New Jersey American Water engineers and executives. New Jersey American Water informed the borough and the county about 4 weeks ago, that they are looking to upgrade the mains from Rumson, Fairhaven, and Red Bank on River Road prior to the county's paving project, which makes sense, but it's directly impacting our previously awarded bid with for the River Road Streetscape West project, which began late last fall and was buttoned up for the winter and was supposed to start this spring. So myself and the mayor and Rich and the borough attorney are working with New Jersey American Water executives and engineers to see how we can coordinate those projects. Clearly, we can't install curbs and sidewalks and then have them come in as part of the main project when they add those services and rip them all up again. But we do have a contract awarded. So there are different layers. We have a follow-up meeting for that on April 23rd. We'll know more at that point and we'll keep the governing body apprised. We also had a meeting on that same day with the Fairhaven representatives of Fairhaven Board of Education to review Willow Street project in its entirety as it relates to curbs, sidewalk, traffic engineering, drop-off, pickup. Rich Gardella is having a follow-up meeting with their engineering team. And what we're really looking for to come off of that meeting and what everyone agreed to it, at least conceptually, was that when we're all said and done, when they cut the ribbon in September, the improvements to Willow Street, which really are mostly on a borough street and borough right away and some of the school's property, ultimately that we improve it as best as that can be. And that will include, curbs, sidewalk, drainage, milling, paving. And the thought was, depending on the engineer's estimate, was to combine resources with the Board of Ed and to put that project out to bid and look to share the cost with them on that whole upgrade, which would benefit everybody, every resident and school personnel that is borough that's in the borough. So we also have a follow-up meeting for that on 4/23. In the meantime, Rich is meeting with the school engineers to go over the plans. So we will keep you apprised on both of those projects also at a future meeting. And I'm going to turn it over to Rich now to take you through the waterfront improvement and pocket parks projects and the what we call in the 2021 micro projects, sidewalks and drainage improvements, keeping in mind that we're looking to put the authorization for these to go out to bid on at the mayor's request on the 4/26 agenda.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Up on the screen, I have the construction drawings for the project known as Pocket Parks at the end of Grange Avenue, Hance Road, and also doing improvements to our boat ramp. We worked, as Teresa had mentioned, we worked with a consulting engineer on this project, Mazer Consulting. Basically, there's 19 sheets. These are construction-ready drawings. The design and layout of each site, there's 3 sites, had been worked on through a subcommittee of the mayor and also prior council members and some of you folks that are on here tonight. And, based on budget and scope of work, these are the, I'll zoom in a little bit. These are the final design drawings, and also recognize that we went through several iterations on these. So this is the end of Grange Avenue. The bulk of this work is obviously the bulkhead. The bulkhead has completely failed at this site. So as part of this improvement, we would be installing a new bulkhead. We would also be handling the outfall pipe and drainage, and then obviously making this, a scenic vista, putting in some benches, a safe walkway down to the waterfront. And once again, the scope is in line with the grant that we submitted to the Monmouth County Open Space, because it is partially funded through that source. The next site is at the end of Hants. This one is not as extensive as the other because the bulkheading and such, this is more of a shoreline protection type, with also allowing, there's a beach at the end of this roadway, allowing some beach access. Once again, similar improvements, on the upland side. And then also in the last round from DOT, we received funds to improve Hants Road, which is the second phase, would take it to this point, and then also Cooney Terrace. So we would tie these projects together as well as part of that. Not as part of this bid package, but in the coming year. And then the final location is the boat ramp. In this particular scheme, we show reconstruction of the boat ramp. We include more of a user-friendly concept. Right now, the boat ramp, as a boat user, it's very difficult to launch your boat, tie your boat up, go park the vehicle, and then come back. This allows a gangway, a floating dock, ADA access, etc., and then tying it into the Baton Road piece here, and also maintenance dredging. The other thing I want to add is for these three sites, we've already been out to Trenton. We've had our pre-application meetings with NJDEP. We've actually secured all the permits to perform this work. So the only thing remaining right now is to finalize the bid specifications, which is the technical documents, which we would work with Mazer Consulting. That's part of their scope of work. And then I would put on our front end for the bid package. So purpose of tonight is to kind of bring you all up to speed on this project. The engineer's estimate is about $800,000, which is in line with the money that was allocated. So we are actually looking to seek authorization to bid this project, but we wanted to put this on the workshop for tonight just to kind of bring everybody up to where we are in this process. So before I move on to the micro projects, if anybody has any questions or anything on this one.
I just have a quick question on the numbers. I understand there's a $250,000 grant for these projects.
Yes, through Monmouth County Open Space.
Okay, and then the balance of the funds needed, has there been, is this included in a prior bond authorization?
Yes, multiple, the total that's been authorized, including the grant, Meg, is $850,000. And the engineer's estimate for this project is currently sitting at $806,000.
Okay, which bond ordinance was that? Does anybody happen to know?
Yeah, I can just give me a second.
Is it 2012?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I actually sent that to you the other day. I'll pull up that.
Yeah,
email.
that's what I was looking. That's what I was looking at. You know what? I didn't.
I think it was last
You know,
year
I don't
at
think
some point.
No, it was multiples. There was the first
Yeah.
one we adopted, I believe it was in 17 for the $250,000 grant. And then I think we did just give me a second to give you the. May, you can go on with the other questions and I'll look for that email.
Okay. Rich, so these projects at the, let's see, so at the end of Grange, it will have it looked like stairs with access to the bulkhead.
Correct.
And then there would be some sort of fencing or a barrier so you can't get into the water? Or what does that look like on an elevation view?
There's going to be bulkheading in this alignment, which is the current alignment. This is like a promenade at the base. Here's the stairs that come down, some benches. And we do have section views in here. I'd have to look through, there's 19 pages, but
That's okay. Yeah,
yeah,
no,
there
that's
would
okay.
be
I'm just
safety, there
wondering-
would be safety measures in place to prevent, any
Falling
folks.
in.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. And then the Hance Avenue one is it is accessed down to a beach. And is that a dock there or stairs or what I'm trying
That's
to, it's very hard to see.
So the one thing at the end of Hance, there is a shoreline and a beach here. So one of the things we worked with the DEP is to put in this access point, which is a public access, which is highly rated at DEP and easily permitted, and it allows use of the beach. Someone can easily come down here, launch a kayak, go fishing on the beach, all the things they're doing now, but it's creating more of a safer way to traverse down to the beach area, while also protecting the shoreline through, various engineering means of to eliminate erosion.
And is that like a brick sort of deck? Or is it raised or is it level with the sand?
This is level with, when you go down at the end of Hance right now, it's a mixture of asphalt as you come down the hill, and then it's like concrete that they've poured and added throughout the years. It's actually undermined. So the elevation is similar in nature to what's there now. It's really not that high off the beach. It's only a couple
Okay.
feet at this location.
Right. And consistent with the way the roadway is now, there will be no parking on that terminus of Hance, right?
Correct. And the limit of work is shown just to where my mouse is here. And then as part of the Hance Road improvements, we'll tie this in. But at this point, we're not looking to add any parking in that area.
Okay. And then can you just, do you mind flipping to Batten Road? Thank you. Okay, I'm imagining kind of where you're, well, that's my pointer, not your pointer. It looks like a dock. The entryway to that dock, is that on top of the existing rock wall sort of that's there?
Yeah, so right here is the existing groin. That's it's like a timber bulkhead that goes out into the water.
Yes.
This is all this riprap area, which is adjacent to the river rat site. This would simply you would basically come in at grade off of Batten Road and walk down what's very similar to a boardwalk or a small dock, actually. And then this is a gangway that would take you to a floating dock, which would essentially be tied up next to that existing structure, which is the timber bulkhead. And then
I see. Okay, so it'll pretty much run parallel to the existing river rat dock.
Keeping within our right of way, yes. And then
Sure, I understand.
And then
And
this
so
shaded area shows the dredged area that we're doing.
Okay, and who is responsible for maintaining that dockway?
This new structure would be the responsibility of the borough.
Okay, and I'm just practically speaking, would that fall within the purview of DPW?
Yes. We maintain it now. We maintain the riprap. We maintain the drainage that comes down Batten to that area, because typically we get a lot of roadside erosion in this area over here by the sign. There's a couple trash cans here, things of that nature.
Okay. Right,
only
I'm just
thing I-
imagining having an actual dock that goes out into the water and a floating dock is a little different than the existing conditions. And just so maintenance wise, I was just curious, you know, I don't, you know, live on the water or have any waterfront rights, so I have no concept of what that takes to maintain. Is that, I'm imagining that's something that you guys have dealt with for a long time, considering the Fairhaven dock.
Well, this is a little different where it's a floating dock with a gangway. So typically you have two options. You can leave it in the water throughout the winter, or you can simply just, since it's small enough, you can drag it up onto the ramp, load it up on a truck and bring it back to our public works yard. It's
Okay.
very
And
similar
then
where, you know, we assist Rumson every year with the rowing club from a DPW standpoint, and we put in those floating docks every year. So it's the same
great.
scope of work.
Same process. Great. And then might be more of a question for Teresa. From an insurance perspective, does the insurance in place cover floating docks and this extension dock that we haven't had historically?
You know, at the end of the day, when they value our insurance, don't necessarily look so much, you know, at adding one piece like a floating dock. They usually look at the borough's total assets and historical claims when the JIF looks to give us a quote on annual insurance.
Okay. Yeah, no, I just want to make sure this is something that would be covered, because certainly, you know, I'm just imagining my own children, you know, attractive nuisance. There's a fun dock, let me go play. And there's no barriers in place for obvious reasons to make it functional for the boat ramp concept. I'm just wondering if there's some safety measure, such as a tall gate for the gangway with a lock, not a lock necessarily, but a latch that's higher so small children couldn't reach it, for example. You know, I'm imagining unsupervised children, you know, anybody could get down there, and I'm sure if they want to get in the water, they'll figure out a way. But I'm imagining the worst case scenarios here. So I just wanted to ask the question to make sure that we do have the appropriate amount of insurance in place.
Well, insurance wise, like I said, I'm not really worried about that so much. Obviously, it's no different than our own current fixed dock, you know, where we have a ladder or people could jump off the edge, or, you know, other, you know, possible liability considerations. You know, there's liability everywhere for accidents that can happen. And I don't see this increasing that any more than, you know, would be any other floating dock in any other, you know, municipal boat ramp or municipal marina facility.
Yeah, no, it's just a change in condition from our previous, you know, from our existing conditions. And like I said, the dock over at Fairhaven has barriers in place for, you know, to prevent someone from falling in. Like I said, this is new. So just wanted to pose the question because, you know, insurance policies can write out disclaimers of coverage on anything they want. A small individual trampoline in your basement is one thing, one in your backyard is totally different. So, you know, blow up plastic pool is one thing, a in-ground pool is another. So just wanted to put the question out there. Rich, it sounds like you guys have been working on these plans for a long time. Is that right?
Yes, mainly because of the DEP process with the permitting, the dredging, the waterfront development, the bulkheading, all the other factors that come into it.
And
Okay,
Meg,
and all of that is
ordinances,
down
just so you
too
know,
fast.
the ordinances that approve these, this total $850,000 were 2016-02, 2016-14, and 2018-21.
Thank you.
If I may ask a question, Rich, I'm just curious as to beyond the riverettes. I mean, I know they use that ramp because they have boats right there and kayaks, but how often is this area used for boat launching? And I'm just wondering to what degree do you expect traffic to increase, like more people using it? I mean, it seems like a nice opportunity for people to use it even more.
No, that's a good question. That's something we considered because obviously you build it, they will come. But it is an existing ramp. I think, Allison, what do we sell? Typically less than 10 ramp passes a year
Lately 10 because of the conditions
because of the
going down there.
condition. One of the issue is the depth of the water. You really can't get any type of boat launched in there. So we are doing some maintenance dredging. But we're also designing this in such a way to promote other type of access other than, typical boat, whether it's stand-up paddle boards, kayaking, other alternatives that would be, that you would use the waterfront for, that may not generate a typical, truck and a trailer scenario. And that's why we kind of really spent some time trying to design this walkway and make it friendly to the user. Because the boat ramp is only so wide, and it's a pre-existing condition, so it's really more of a maintenance project rather than construction of a whole new boat ramp.
Thank you very much, Rich. Are there
Can I
any other
jump-
questions?
Yes, Mayor. One quick question that just kind of popped into my mind when Meg was talking about insurance. These improvements to the bulkhead, the bulkheads, I'm wondering, is there a bonus or a plus to the residents regarding the community rating system, the FEMA's National Flood Insurance Program? Like, would this help out residents who are in flood-prone areas by increasing the bulkhead and shoring those bulkheads up?
Will you take that, Rich, or you want to take it?
I know this is like, it just came to me. I didn't know, but I'm thinking there might be some upside to some of our residents.
Well, I think it's fair to say that that these are really bulkheads that were existing that have failed. I don't know how much additional floodplain coverage that would offer. That's that's more of a question. Nick's our floodplain manager, and I certainly can have him look at it. But off the top of my head, I don't think you'd be getting a lot of. It doesn't service a whole lot of residents. There's only probably a couple of adjoining, residents next door on either side that that bulkhead would even tie into their bulkhead.
Okay. Yeah, I just remember like a point could save up to like $5,000 for insurance. So
Mhm.
I guess that it just came to me. I was hoping there might be some more possible upside to this, but besides that, thank you.
Thank you, Mike. All right, any other questions? All right, seeing none. Then the walkside and drainage improvements. That concludes your report, Teresa?
I know Rich is going to take them through the 2021 micro project, road
micro
and sidewalk
project,
drainage
yes.
improvements.
Yes, Rich?
Okay, next project. So we had looked at doing some drainage improvements on Park Lane. Currently, there's 3 catch basins. There's one right here, right over here, and then one mid-block. They were put in probably 15 plus years ago, maybe 20 years ago. They have nothing more than a sump bottom, which means they don't go anywhere. And what typically happens is they fill up with water, and during the summer months, they're a problem. And then even during the winter, we have a freezing condition. So if you recall back in 17, we did some improvements at the intersection of Buttonwood and Linden. We put in a series of catch basins. 2 of them are shown here. And then back in, I want to say 19, when we did 3rd Street, we put in these 2 catch basins at Laurel and tied that into Fairhaven Road, with the notion that we would simply run this, as a future phase and tie all this together. So the engineering was done, so these would allow everything to hydraulically flow and tie into this. And simply by adding 1, 2, 3 catch basins, and then these sections of pipe, tying in these existing ones. And then obviously noticing the alignment of the pipe, you'd have to remove and replace the curb, restore the driveways, and then we would come and mill and pave Park and Laurel. So that has been on the kind of to-do list. And that was part of the proposal to put in as part of this 2021. We call it the micro projects, which is really sidewalk drainage and roadway improvements. And my engineer's estimate to do that work for the drainage infrastructure, concrete work, milling and paving is $225,000. We do receive, complaints from the neighbors within this area on a regular basis. We've been kind of telling them it's coming, we're going to get there. So this is the design that we've proposed. And that's one of the streets that we're looking to do as part of the micro projects. The next one I'm going to bring up is Hunting Lane. We did Hunting Lane off a change order back in 17. The drainage line that runs from, this is Hants Road, this is Dartmouth. For this one block, there's a drainage pipe that comes from here, it runs on a diagonal, it ties into this catch basin. This was at failure mode. We had sinkholes throughout this entire roadway. We had the contractor at the time off the 17 micro projects job. We did a change order. We did a remove and replacement of that drainage pipe. We rebuilt the catch basins. We restored some of the curb work, but we never paved the street. We just simply restored the trench, and we've been monitoring it. Everything seems to be holding up pretty well, but we still have to do the curb on the one side. And the other thing is Hunting Lane is a very wide right-of-way. There's 60 feet. A typical right-of-way for a municipal road is 50 feet, as you can see on Hants Road. In this particular case, you've got 60 here. You also have 60 on Dartmouth. This is one of the main, points of access into this neighborhood. And given that the school is just to the north of us, we're proposing to put sidewalk in on at least one side of the street. There's adequate right of way. And just looking at it in the site and walking the job, it would make sense for it to go right in this area. So the scope of work for this one would be curb, sidewalk, and then final milling and paving. And that estimate is $75,000 for this street. The other locations we were looking at, and this goes back a couple years, was dealing with the sidewalks in the Gentry. We've got a lot of uplift from the trees. DPW at the time, we went in and we patched some of it with some asphalt. We ramped some of it just to try to, eliminate some of the more egregious trip hazards. In the Gentry alone, we've got about 4,500 square feet of sidewalk that needs to be removed and replaced. And of that, we also need to do 8 ADA curb ramps. That development goes back, I think it was completed back in the 90s. So, we're at a point now, we definitely have to do the ADA curb ramps and then on to deal with the sidewalk issue. So that estimate for those locations, that's about a $50,000 expenditure to do that. The other location we were looking at was Fairhaven Road, the brick sidewalks from River Road down to the dock. Back in 2009, we did a road program. That's when we milled and paved Fairhaven Road. We put in new curb, and we've reset a lot of those brick sidewalks. Now 12 years later, we've seen a lot of uplift from the existing trees. We've got about 3,000 square feet of brick sidewalk in that area that needs to be removed and reset. And based on current bid prices, you're probably looking at about a $35,000 expenditure for that location. So those are the 4 main locations for the micro projects. We've also got a list of miscellaneous curb, sidewalk, and curb ramps to do throughout the borough. That would include, streets that don't have any handicap ramps, There's certain areas where curb is totally dilapidated. We would go in and do, replacement of that. We would take care of some other sidewalk issues throughout the borough. And then we actually just had our surveyors out on Lewis Lane. When we did Baton Road, we turned the corner on Lewis and we went one house, we added sidewalk as part of that Baton Road project. We're looking at linking the sidewalk on Lewis Point Road to the new Baton Road sidewalk. So our surveyors just did the survey. We're waiting on the base map and we're going to generate some cost estimates on that. So in all, it's a nice project altogether. Once again, it's various locations throughout the borough, different types of work, sidewalk, drainage, milling, paving. And Teresa, I think we have approximately $640,000 allocated.
643,009. I'll call the governing body's attention to the spreadsheet I included. These projects would be listed under funding in ordinance 2018-21 and 2020-12 for sidewalk and road improvements and drainage. And then Hunting Lane was authorized separately in 2020-12. That 643,009 does not include Hunting Lane, the $75,000 for that. So we certainly have enough money previously authorized for this work in prior bond ordinances to go ahead and put it out to bid. Or at least authorized to go out to bid at the next meeting if the governing body is so inclined.
Thank you. Any
Yes,
questions?
Just a brief question, sorry.
I'm just asking, any questions? Lalini?
I just have a brief one to Rich on the section on Fairhaven Road that you mentioned going to the dock. Some of those trees, would you have to remove the trees to get the sidewalk fixed?
No, we're not looking at removing any trees. The nice thing about brick pavers and bricks is we can ramp up over the existing root system without compromising the trees. Or even just divert the sidewalk, and do more of a half moon around some of the tree pits and tree wells as appropriate.
Good, I'm glad to hear that.
Very good. Anybody else have any questions or comments? Seeing none, I'd like to put this up for approval at our next meeting. Is everybody good with that? It's very important that we keep maintaining our pace of investment in our town. Thank you. Okay, so ends the workshop session. Public comments on agenda items. Motion open.
Motion.
Okay, there we are.
Mayor,
Teresa, let's call
House
up.
lady, I've recognized Ruth. If you want to unmute yourself, you're good to go.
I have a question on the Hance Road Park. In my recollection, there was an outfall pipe down there. Has it been removed?
No, it's being upgraded and maintained, or actually restored and maintained, and that was one of the impetuses for doing this. So in conjunction with working on the outfall pipe, it was decided to make a small park area to go in conjunction with it. So folks from that side of town have a nice amenity.
Well, are you going to fence off or put some kind of a barrier between what is access to the water and the pipe? That, when stuff is coming out of the pipe.
It's a beach area down there. I'm sure the engineers will thought through all of that in the design.
Okay. On the subject of the brush area and talking about grinding, I don't know if I was clear. Are you going to allow the residents to pick up mulch or compost that is generated?
Yes.
Yes, we plan on going back to as we had after Sandy, selecting an area over by the community garden where we be basically maintaining a pile of double or triple ground mulch for the residents to access.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Trish Ferretti.
Go ahead, Trish. You can unmute yourself.
Okay, I have a quick question about the Hance Road improvements. We were watching the surveyors, and I was just wondering, because one of the surveyors did mention something about the possibility of sidewalks. Would they be extending the sidewalks from Lewis Point Road down toward the river?
Yes,
Cardillo?
we submitted an NJDOT grant, and as part of that scope, we were putting sidewalk on one side of the road, which would continue in. This would be the second phase.
Okay, which side of the road would it be on? Do you know?
We haven't gotten the base map yet back, so I'm not exactly, we need to kind of finalize where the right of way is, but we anticipate it being on the east side.
Okay, all right, thank you.
You're welcome, Trish. Ferguson.
Go ahead. Mr. Ferguson.
Hi. It's
Good
Carolyn
evening.
Ferguson, 7 Colonial Court. My first question is about the Hants Beach. We used to live in that neighborhood and we did used to put kayaks in there. And I'm interested in that ability being maintained. So I was just wondering, I see like kind of a long staircase. And to me,
Yeah.
it looked like it might be challenging to drag a kayak down or up 9 steps. So I was just wondering about either like a ramp or some steps with a landing and then some more steps with a landing, or any other ability to put a kayak in there or a paddleboard or anything.
Yeah, that's why we're looking at implementing that stair. It's only a few steps down to the beach, actually.
Okay,
So once you get down to the lower level, that little promenade area, you'll have direct access right to the beach from there.
okay. So you said just a few steps, not 8 or 9, right?
Correct.
Is that hard? Okay. And then I do have some questions about the brush grinding. I feel like I don't fully understand the recommendations. And my first question is there a document I'm supposed to be looking at? No, right?
There's a memo that was sent to the governing body members. We can certainly share that with you, Carolyn.
We can put the memo up on the website so everybody can see it.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that it wasn't because I wasn't reading something I was supposed to be. Given the current situation of 18-wheelers going into the brush grinding site and also exiting the site, what is the future state proposed for that? Both parts.
We're not there yet. The committee wanted to move away from the 110-yard trailers, right? The very large trucks, and kind of de-industrialize the process. So Rich Gardella is contacting some local contractors. Individuals are mostly in the, say, the tree service industry, not the recycling business. And then the idea is to have them use their vehicles. We still may have some smaller 18-wheelers. We're not really sure yet, but the idea is to reduce the scope of work and the criteria in which they're going to be maybe not bidding, but an agreement we enter into so as to minimize the impact to the neighbors. So we're stepping forward, and Rich has a pretty good feel for this. So, based upon his recommendation, this is how we're going to go forward. So the direction we wanted was to get away from the 110-yard trailers, and that's the way we're going.
Mayor, does do we have one more cycle with the current contract and then the following cycle will be the
No,
one
Chris, we're done with the current contract.
Okay,
Our 2 options are whether or not we need to get 2 quotes, depending on the amount of the brush, or whether we need to go back out to bid again. And if we go back out to bid, we'll put the alternates in the bid specs to be bid, for the reduction in time and the reduction in size of the truck, so you know exactly what those are costing.
that's great news. Thank you.
Yeah, so it's at the end of the day, it's yardage in and yardage out. We removed Rumson from the equation. So, now it's really just Fairhaven's brush only. That will be weather dependent. If we have episodes of storms, it'll certainly increase the level of brush. Folks landscaping their homes and I think everybody's doing some extra duty in the yard. We may have a little bit more brush, but the concept and the recommendation from the brush committee to the DPW is do everything we can. So, I hope the neighborhood bears with us. We'll see how things go. And then if further adjustments are needed, we will reconvene the brush committee to take it further.
In the new process, like in the old process, there was brush coming in and ground up brush leaving.
Yes.
Will either of those stop happening, or will both of those still be happening?
No, both of those we will still be taking brush into the site. And then once it achieves a certain amount, then the tub grind will be brought in. It'll reduce the brush down in size, and then that'll be carted away.
It'll
Okay.
be at a 2x reduction of what it currently is, because we won't be bringing in 60 or 70% more material from Rumson.
Okay. Great. I'd like to stress that it's not just a concern for the people in that neighborhood. I ride my bike, I walk back there, and I've bumped into 18-wheeler trucks and felt very unsafe. And then just on the financial issues, I understand that there's a certain level of impracticality that's observed right away, but without some sort of genuine numbers, I think it's hard to feel a certain level of confidence in the recommendations, so that even if it was just something written down that showed us, if we stay with what we're doing versus just some sort of proposal that we're going to cart out the stuff and take it to Middletown or something, if we could just see to understand, like, are we talking about times 10, times 100? I think it would help. It would improve the quality of the conversation if people, kind of had some sort of real number. So
Yeah, bidding out these kinds of things require bid specs. We didn't go down that path. And I don't know that Middletown would be interested in bidding for something that we actually we couldn't realistically sign up for. So when we did look at all of that, we had to take those things into consideration. This was not necessarily solely a monetary issue, and we wanted to try to bite these things off in consumable sizes. And so and like the mayor said, after 6 months or a year, we'll analyze and see if it's working for the community at large, not just the immediate community, but the broader community. And we'll continue to work on the issue.
great. Thank you very much. And thank you to the Brush Committee for their hard work.
Thank you, Carolyn. Jen Spitz.
Go ahead, Jen.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. I had a couple of follow-up questions, Chris, that I just wanted to get some clarity on. You had mentioned obviously keeping the site in operation here, but a potential long-term solution is relocating it. But there are several state level approvals that would need to be tackled. So is it a long-term solution because we're going to start looking at those state level approvals and start going down that road and trying to make the move now, but it's going to take 3, 4, 5 years to do that? Or is this a thing that we're saying we're not going to look at that for, X number of years, and then at that point we'll start dealing with those approvals and however long it would take?
I would characterize it as the latter. We had a lot of conversation amongst the committee about trying to do that. It would first and foremost probably the best site that we could locate would be just swapping the gardens with the site, and that belongs to the natural area. So having conversations locally before we make any steps with the state would be a first step in that process. But I think it's more of a, we wanted a near-term solution and leave a longer-term solution on the table. So we're not actively going to solicit anything from the state without making sense of whether it's possible locally or not. And we would start with the natural area folks.
Yeah, I completely understand, getting our own ducks in a row here in town before going out to the state. I guess I was just trying to figure out, are we going to start that process here in town now? Or is that like a because I know the state approvals will take a long period of time. So I was just trying to figure out, are we going to start this process, even if it's the local piece of it now, or are we waiting X number of years' time, et cetera, to do that?
I wouldn't say that's a brush committee decision. That's really more of a council decision. And the council is just getting the recommendations now. It's my opinion that we should, first of all, see how the reduction in trucks, reduction in traffic, reduction in load plays out in the community, and then poll the community and try to feel it out that way. But I don't, no doors are closed, but we're trying to proceed with a logical path. So I wouldn't say, that there was no recommendation to do that immediately from the brush committee, and it's really up to the council if they, as they contemplate the recommendations and make decisions going forward. I wouldn't close the door on anything.
Thanks, Chris. The only reason I ask is because we've been trying to advocate for change for 6 years. So I'd hate to see this longer term solution shelved for 2 or 3, and then it take another 5 or 6 once we get to the state approval. And, then we're looking at, trying to chase a change for 15 years. So that's why I was asking. And then, and maybe some of this was just covered by the mayor with Carolyn's questions, but you mentioned advocating for changes, and I was kind of hoping for a little more of a specific, what does that mean in terms of noise versus trucks versus timing of, like, what are those pieces of change you want to see happen? Because we've asked for a lot of these things for a while, and it sounds good when you say advocate for change, but being somebody who lives right on the other side of this site and has young kids who are now free on 2-wheeler bikes, I'd like to really understand what we think we're going to be able to include.
Well, we would limit the size of the trucks. We would limit the total number of grinds. We would limit the time of day that these things are done. Those are the primary changes. And we think that'll improve safety. It'll improve the noise issue. It'll reduce the total amount of pollen. Those are the types of changes we're talking about.
Perfect. And then I think Teresa may have just covered this, but I had it in my list of questions, so I want to ask it. So our previous contract is done. We're going to have to go out with a bid spec now for the next round of grinding. It's usually a 12 to 18 month contract. Have these changes been included in that bid spec now, or are we going to have to wait, another 12 to 18 months to see this, implemented?
We
No,
are gonna wait. I'm sorry, Chris, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I thought you was asking me.
Whoever.
We are gonna wait and see whether or not we need to go out for quotes, depending on quantity or bids, Jen. We haven't written the bid specs yet. It's dependent on New Jersey state contract law. Depending on the quantity and what we foresee is the amount, we may be able to achieve it with quotes, like the mayor had said earlier. And as part of those quotes, we'd work with the vendors to make sure that they could meet our criteria. If we actually go out to bids, that's different. There'll be a bid specs. And like I said before, we would bid each as an alternate to get you an idea of what it would cost for each of the requests that Chris just outlined.
Thanks. Yeah, I ask because I know in the past we've gotten caught in this, sticky cycle where the bid spec goes out, these things aren't in it, and then we start asking for changes and it's too late because we've already come to an agreement on a contract. So I would, wanted to make sure that, what the timing looked like on that. And I've noticed that, and I forget the tree company that the borough uses, even though they were in my backyard cutting some trees down for you guys over the winter. But I've noticed that they're storing all of the trees that have been covered in vines that they've been cutting down from over here, from down by Bicentennial Hall in the brush site. So what happens with those? Do those go through the tub grinder, or are we going to need larger trucks to now haul those tree trunks out that are stored in there?
Rich, do you know that one?
It all
Yeah,
goes into the grinder.
The larger material was from the Buttonwood project, and that was Frontier Tree.
Frontier, yeah, the ones from behind my house also went into the site. I watched them drive them down.
So we're getting quotes to either haul that out as logs, or we can put them, if we can grind them, we will.
Have we done any look into when we grind stuff like that and they're covered in the various vines that are invasive? What happens? Is that helping to spread those invasive vines further through town by making them airborne?
I haven't conducted a study on that, no.
I'm just curious because we're ending up with all kinds of ivy that we've never had before over here. And it just dawned on me that a lot of that's probably ending up in the grinder and potentially, because it's not coming from shoots from anywhere. It's like fresh out of the ground. So I just
I
wanted
don't
to
think
raise that.
ivy, I don't think ivy, I'm not an expert, but I don't think ivy spreads by seeds, coming from the air.
Yeah,
But,
I haven't looked into it too carefully, but we've never had it here and it's popping up all over the place and there's no place for it to be shooting from underground that I
Well,
can see.
there's invasive and ivy all over Fairhaven Fields in different areas. So,
Yeah, it just hasn't
it
been in
just
my
might
yard
have finally
before.
gotten to your area.
Maybe. And then with doing a triple grind, what is the impact of that? Is that a longer cycle? Do the chips go through more than once? Is that how you get to a triple grind? Is it just the type of grinder that's used? Is it louder? Is it going to shake my house more? Is it gonna produce
It's just
more
as they
dust?
say, it's a triple grind. They put it through 3 times and it won't be all the brush, just a portion of it that we can have enough for residents.
Okay. So there's potential for longer disruption than by doing a triple grind because you'll have to put the stuff.
I don't think it's going to be, markedly more rich.
We've been doing it for as long as I've been here, 14 years. It's normally a double grind. They simply swap out the screen on the grinder and they leave us a small pile. It's nothing of any substance.
This is a process that's been going on in Fairhaven for over 40 years.
I'm just curious because we've been
No,
living
yeah.
with the tub grinder with the large chunks. And so if we're switching to a different process, I just want to understand the impact over here in
Yep.
terms of length of time. If doing the grind today takes 5 days and we're going to do a triple grind and it's going to make it 6 or 7 or 8, we should understand that that's extra days of noise, dust, traffic issues that are, going to impact the residents. And that's why I was asking. I understand this has been done for a
Okay,
while.
I understand. So at least if I hopefully give you some, subject to storms not coming through, that 5 days you're referring to, right? That's what we had prior. So we reduced the material 60 to 70%. Okay, so that'll take that 5 days down, a substantial amount. And we are looking to lessen the impact to your home.
I understand that. I just was curious
and
specifically
we-
about the triple grind and how
Yeah.
it functions differently than what we've been experiencing. That was
It
all.
actually reduces the truck traffic because we carry less material out.
And the grind for residents, you said that'd be by the community center, so we wouldn't be adding more people into the neighborhood driving personal vehicles to pick up and haul out.
No, that would be by, not the community. not by the
Community gardens, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yep, sorry.
So, all right, and then Jen, to go back to the relocation, it's on the back burner, but when this piece of property was purchased by the borough from the Lovett family, the Lovett tract, funds were received from Monmouth County, the state of New Jersey, and the federal government to purchase the tract of land. We could certainly start that process now, but when I was working on this, I stopped cold because the reaction of the Natural Area Committee, to whom I went and spoke. If we are to be serious about relocating the brush facility out to Ridge Road, where it truly does belong, right? We would want a wholehearted and unanimous memo of endorsement from the Natural Area Committee stating that they would work with the borough to find a suitable size piece of land to do that. With that in hand, I think the governing body would be more than happy to go through the process, which will be arduous, but go through the process to advocate at the county, state, and federal level to convert that land over to a Class B recycling facility.
Got it. Yeah, I just was curious about timing, if we were going to push it off for a number of years, do it right away. I just was curious on
Yeah,
timing.
and
I
you were,
understand that.
you were appointed to the Natural Area Committee, so, you know, you could consider this your charge if you so choose to take it up. That it is, you know, not being put off to the side. It's awaiting really approval of the Natural Area Committee. Because certainly, you know, we could go through the advocacy, but if we had a group here, you know, under the guise of the Recreation Committee saying, no, we don't want this, that would make that process very difficult. But
Yep,
if we had the concurrence of the Natural Area Committee and the Recreation Committee, and really the entire community as a whole, that would certainly help with the advocacy.
I would just mention that if we do have that effort and in those discussions, I really would like to see us also have a serious financial discussion on the possibility of hauling that whole thing out of Fairhaven. You know, I can see why the Natural Area Committee might have reservations about having the brush site moved to that area in Fairhaven Fields where we have kids biking and people walking, and it's our main walking area. And you know, one of the best things we have is that whole Fairhaven Fields natural area. So I'll just add that I think it's a discussion that needs to be had, but alongside that, we should have a very serious discussion on other options.
Well, yes, Lilini. So the idea of moving it out to Ridge Road is we would be able to isolate it, buffer it, you know, from all the recreational activities. You know, to do the haul out and you know, as a member of the Green Team, you know, probably what we're looking at is 1 to 2 additional 30-yard packers at $350,000 a piece. We're probably looking at an additional loader. I believe they go for about $125,000 a piece. And then you're looking at 2 to 3 employees, which altogether come in, you know, $80,000 to $100,000. So you amortize that equipment over its useful life and its maintenance and its fueling, and the employees, you know, you're looking at somewhere in the range of $350,000 a year in additional expense to the taxpayer. Now, understand that, you know, we as a borough with a $9.5 million budget, more or less, and a 2 cap, that limits us to about $190,000 a year increase in taxes. So the back of the envelope number is if we just want to go through, you know, on the basis, because, you know, we only have a brief period of time to do the brush pickup, that's pretty much the number you're looking at, right? You're looking at about $350,000 a year, plus the fact that you're really not doing it in a green manner, because the only place we can take it is out in Tinton Falls, and with little to no traffic, it's about a 40-minute round trip or an hour and a half, and that's why you need the extra equipment if you want to maintain the pace at which we are picking up the brush. So look, if the council's, you know, willing to do that and to, you know, to extend the budget and, you know, perhaps even go out to a referendum to the entire, you know, borough to increase the tax rate that much, you know, I think that's something we could consider. But, you know, at the end of the day, this is a service we extend to the taxpayer. Not all boroughs have this. I believe that Middletown does not pick up brush. They pick up leaves once a year. You know, we have a fairly high frequency of services we extend to the taxpayer. If we want to alter that, that's certainly possible, but there is an economic impact for everything that we do. I
mean, I would be completely open to this consideration of not picking up the brush. If, you know, if other towns don't do it, but we're doing it, maybe we need to look into the costs and the benefits and why we're doing it. And, you know, I'm sure the residents appreciate the service, but I see some clear burdens that we have in maintaining it. But I do think that these recommendations are very good short term, but to the questions being asked by the residents, we should definitely be looking at other solutions.
You should take a look at the survey results, because we've got hundreds of people that we got survey results from. So rather than, there's a bit of speculation going on here that we have hard data for.
Yeah.
I
It's
had-
just- and again, those numbers I gave you are back of the napkin, but that's pretty much where it comes out. All right, let's go to,
I had one last question if I could, and then.
oh, yes,
I'll
please,
be
Jen,
done.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. I didn't want to cut off the conversation. Now there were several trees behind us that were taken out. I think 7 or 8 behind several of the homes right here on William between us and the grinding area.
Mhm.
And now that they are gone, I can actually see straight across to the fence that's on the Fairhaven Field side of the grinding site. Is there a possibility to go in and fix the berm over there so that it's built a little higher in the corner where it's sort of dog leg so that we buffer out more of the noise? So the berm is high on the Fairhaven Fields Trail side and coming through the trail out to William Street. And it seems that somewhere in there it must break because now I can see all the way through to the fence on the other side of the grinding site. So is there a possibility to help with some of this noise reduction by fixing the berm over there?
I'm going to defer to Rich Gardella. I don't really have a mental picture of the berm or any of it.
I'll ask Rich to go out with,
We'd have to look at it and do an
take a
assessment.
look at it.
Thank
The only
you.
other thing I could say to you, Jen, is high fences make good neighbors. So the other choice is for you to buffer yourself.
I'm looking at a fence.
There you go.
But that's not going to cut the noise out. So that's why I'm asking about the berm.
Mm. It's quite possible. All right, anything else? No.
We have Marty with the
Marty?
hand up.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, Marty. Unmute yourself and you can speak.
Hi, thank you. I'm wanting to go back to the Hance Road project and the sidewalks.
Yes, Marty.
Is that a done deal, or have residents had any opportunity to have input? Because I don't know that everybody's going to be very happy about adding sidewalks all the way down Hance, especially now that we've had the opportunity to live with the sidewalks on Hance toward the River Road side, and we've seen real challenges with those sidewalks that have been put in. So just asking if there's any input from residents, or how is that going to be handled?
The residents actually were asking for sidewalks throughout town to make the town more walkable in the 2015 reevaluation of the master plan. So the same thing with the pocket parks at the end of Grange and Hance. So that's really where we get our direction as a town from a land management perspective.
I understand that, but this is a unique area. And one of the things that people, and I can't speak for everybody, of course, but I certainly have been here for many, many years, and I do know many of my neighbors. And one of the things that they always have treasured is the ruralness down here of the area. And I understand that the survey said sidewalks would be helpful, but that, within certain areas in Fairhaven, there are unique areas. And I think that, I would love to have you be able to take that into consideration, because I think it would be a concern. Certainly it is for me, but I also know that it would be a concern for other neighbors as well.
Thank you.
I think it's also important to keep in mind that a lot of the funding for this coming out of the NJDOT grant process, that they are looking for connectivity. They're looking to follow our active transportation plans, our Safe Streets to Schools programs. So, when we submit grants like this, they do look at the borough from 10,000 feet and encourage the installation of sidewalks, particularly when they link to other sidewalks or projects they previously funded for sidewalks.
Also,
Go ahead.
sorry, no, Marty, I'm sorry. I just was going to ask a follow-up question to maybe help clarify your concerns. Rich, the sidewalks for Hance and Cooney, that's a different project, correct? This is mostly just for the pocket parks right now.
We did phase 1 from River Road to Lewis. We put in sidewalk on the east side. There was no sidewalk there. And then the pocket parks is a separate project, which is what was presented tonight. And then as an aside, I had mentioned we have a DOT grant, which was the 2020 funding for the second phase of Hance and Cooney. And as Teresa had mentioned, we get high marks when we follow the Complete Streets Initiative, our active transportation plan, walkability, from a grant standpoint, and also the importance of linking those improvements we're doing at the waterfront to make it walkable. Once again, we're getting the base mapping done. I haven't gotten the surveys back yet. We will look at all of this and
Is there any opportunity for the residents of Hance Road to have input on this or not at all?
Certainly, we'll have a public comment if and when the plans are presented. We'll certainly have public comment on it.
Do we know how far away we are from this phase 2, the sidewalk project?
In queue behind several other projects. I don't see it, Rich. I don't see it coming in for a couple of years. Do you?
I would say, I mean, we have a deadline with DOT.
I'd have to look at the deadline date.
So I think this is the one that has to be bid by November.
21. Yeah, I think you're right.
So,
But I mean, as far as the installation goes.
installation one, we would looking at, the earliest next spring or summer, so at least a year away.
From
Is there any-
implementation, design would be this summer,
It's-
fall, early fall.
Yeah.
Marty, can I ask a question? My question is if you could elaborate. You mentioned that the sidewalk that went in from River to Lewis is problematic.
Oh, yes, it's terrible.
Can you explain what you mean by that?
Yes, of course, because when we didn't have sidewalks on that, Hance is not, it's narrow. And if there was anything blocking, if you have brush out or if there's a car parked, you could still get by. 2 cars could get by. Now that the sidewalks are there, there's no possibility of that happening. And it's especially difficult down at the River Road area when you've got the police car parked there to cross the kids, and then a big truck comes in, or there's a lot of construction going on at the end of Hance right now. So we've all learned to live with it, but we do notice a lot of people walking in the street because the sidewalks are not wide, and so a lot of people still walk in the street, but 2 cars cannot get past if there's anything now on the side. Before, you could just kind of squeak over to the side and it was fine, and everybody was able to manage. And now you can't do that. And so there's sometimes also there's a big backup at River Road because of the traffic.
Okay, so you're suggesting that when they put in those sidewalks that Hance was narrowed and it's creating the scenario you described?
Yeah, it is, I mean, we all live with it now because the sidewalks are there, but I don't know that the sidewalks have provided what people thought they were going to provide. When you have the big
Rich,
double strollers, triple strollers, that doesn't work well.
Well, Rich, do you happen to know, was that a limitation based on, I know there's a wall condition on Hance, was that based on a limitation by that's not present further north on Hance?
When we put the curbs in, we held the existing cartway width, which is the pavement width. What used to happen was a lot of the people that parked on Hance parked sort of on a couple feet on to front lawns. It created some erosion issues. So it gave an appearance that the roadway was actually wider than it was. And there was a lot of inconsistencies too, where folks added some pavement here and there in front of their houses. This created a continuous width. We held the flare at the River Road intersection, the improvements that the county did when they put that new traffic signal in. And we basically had the consistent width all the way down to Lewis. Sidewalks were put in the lawn area. They were not put in an existing paved area. So
Okay, that's what I
This is the
was
first I'm
imagining.
hearing of this issue.
Yeah, that's what I was imagining. I just wanted to ask the question. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Marty, anything else?
No, I'd love an opportunity maybe to meet with Rich or meet with somebody to, be able to go over this in more detail. I don't know if that's possible, but I would welcome the opportunity.
That'll be very possible once he gets his base maps back and he's had an ability to look at the design.
Mhm.
Being April, May, June, July, probably about July, August, somewhere in there. If I was to take a guess,
Okay,
would be the appropriate time. All right.
all right. Should I call back or how does that work?
But we'll post when Rich has the designs ready, as we always do, we would post them ahead of time on the borough's website.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome, Marty. Have a wonderful evening. All right.
I got Tracy
we've already-
Cole, Mayor.
Yep, Tracy Cole. And then if Carolyn still wants to speak again, we'll come back to her. All right.
Go ahead, Tracy, unmute.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, Tracy Cole, 123 Grange Ave. I have to say, I'm in agreement with Marty, and I find myself a little torn because I'm also an advocate for the active transportation plan and safe streets, safe routes to school, and all of those programs. There's something unique about Hanson Grange, and there's a sense of place that is conveyed in part by the lack of the sidewalks. And I would just say, rather than dwell on it now, there may perhaps be exceptions where that suburban sidewalk treatment is not appropriate if you want to preserve the sense of place that is there and perhaps beloved. Worth a conversation, and I'll show up at any meeting that Rich or council people invite us to. And Marty, I appreciate where you're coming from. I think you're making a good point. I had two questions. Does the Natural Area Committee have authority over the natural area? And if so, where can I read about their scope of responsibilities?
They're advisory in nature. They're not a commission.
So they do not have authority.
Well, hold on, Tracy.
They're advisory in nature, Tracy.
Correct. That's why it's a committee, not a commission.
Tracy,
Generally
can I ask
speaking.
a question? Are you referring to the community garden space or the actual natural area, which is limited to the trails?
I was referring to the entity, the committee.
Okay, because the space that it governs is limited to the defined natural area trails.
Oh, thank you. That's helpful. So the committee, the committee scope of responsibility or advisory role is limited to the natural area and the trails therein.
That's correct.
Yeah. And so,
for example, there is a trailway that connects between Williams Street, Fairhaven Fields, and 3rd Street. That is not within the purview of the natural area.
Got it. So really, it's the governing bodies who has authority over Fairhaven Fields, a natural area, and the community gardens.
Yes.
Yes. All right. Thank you. My question is, if you could, I had a little bit of trouble finding the fair share ordinance. I did eventually find it. Thank you to some helpful folks who were clever enough to see it on sort of like the title page of the email, but I didn't have a chance to read it at length, but I was hoping you could expand a little bit on the First Amendment of the settlement agreement between the borough and M&M Realty. I would assume perhaps the ordinance that's on the agenda tonight for introduction is related to that settlement. I would have read everything, but I simply couldn't see it until tonight.
Yes, Tracy, it is actually an ordinance for that particular block and lot where the commonly known as the Sunoco site that is owned by M&M Realty. And that lays out what is the understanding between the borough and the developer for what can and cannot be done to that site within reason. There's still a process they need to go through when they ultimately come before the planning board for some of the minutia. We couldn't put everything in the ordinance, but that generally speaks to the overlay zone at that particular block and lot.
And what is the nature of the amendment?
The settlement, you mean?
I'm guessing that the settlement.
We actually had an original settlement, and then M&M had some concerns on the ordinance that was going to be or originally going to be tied to that settlement agreement. So we went back to negotiations under the courts and the court master, and came to this amendment to the original settlement, which includes this ordinance.
Yeah, I think, what are the specifics of the settlement, or just, I mean, I know you may not want to go into it in detail, but there's an amendment to the ordinance and there is a settlement agreement, both of which are part of the agenda tonight. One is a resolution and one is an ordinance. And I'm
Right,
wondering if
well,
you could explain, why is there an amendment, and does it relate to the settlement with M&M?
Because there's changes to the original settlement. This is this amendment to the original settlement agreement.
What are the changes? That's because it's not in either document.
The amendment, it's attached to the resolution.
Well, the resolution refers to
The amendment is right behind that,
it says the First Amendment to the settlement.
right? And behind it is the actual amendment that's multiple pages long.
Well, you might have that, but I don't.
I'm going to defer to Allison as far as that goes of what was and wasn't, part of that. It's quite lengthy, and there's also,
Well, does it have to do with setbacks or landscaping?
Yes,
Or
it
does
has to do with
use,
setbacks. It's all been vetted through and approved by our fair share, outlaw subcommittee initially, and then virtually back to the full governing body in executive session that was gone through with both of our professionals prior to it coming to the public agenda.
I still don't know what it's about, though. So it's just about all of it? Setbacks, landscape,
Yes.
permitted uses,
Yes,
everything, all of it.
yes. There's a whole plan behind it.
Okay. And it's somewhat related, and I don't know how viable this is, but I'd like to make a pitch or a plea that best efforts are made to maintain the tall trees between the M&M site and the home directly east of it. That is an important buffer between what will be a significantly more intense use next to that residential property. Thank you for the opportunity to be heard.
Welcome. Carolyn, would you like to be heard again?
Yes. Carolyn Ferguson, 7 Colonial Court. As you know, I'm the chair of the Natural Area Advisory Committee. And I just have one question. When looking for an alternate site for the brush grinding, why is the focus always on the natural area portion of Fairhaven Fields and not on the recreation portion?
That's a very good question. And the reason I'd say that is, it's active versus passive recreation. We simply don't have enough. Really, our fields are at peak usage right now. So that's why we went towards the natural area. Also, you have an additional. Look, at the end of the day, a Class B recycling facility is an industrial use. You would certainly be giving up some land within the natural area, but since it is the natural area, the thought was that you would be able to buffer it and shield it, so when it was in place, it really wouldn't be noticed by people utilizing the natural area.
I would say something different or complementary to that. The frontage to Ridge Road was really the concept.
Yes.
Trying to get the cars out of, and the trucks, sorry, not the cars, but all of the large vehicles out of the back neighborhoods. And the concept of putting it on Ridge, you know that there's only about 300 feet between the electrical transfer or the power transfer station and the community gardens. So the site and the size is quite small in terms of the frontage on Ridge as compared to the natural area. It was really mostly driven around Ridge, Carolyn, and nothing else. We could try to find some other location as well, and we're all ears, but it's ultimately going to end up in a residential neighborhood if it's not on Ridge. And so that's really the reason why we were looking in areas that are associated with the natural area.
Thank you for that clarification, Chris.
Okay, thank you.
All right. I see no other hands, so motion to close public comments on agenda items.
Motion.
Thank you. Approval of minutes, March 22nd, 2021 regular meeting and March 22nd, 2021 executive session. Motion to offer.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Council members Chris Keefe,
Yes.
Koch,
Yes.
McHugh,
Yes.
Neff,
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Okay, great. Old business, hearing adoption of ordinances, ordinance number 2021-3, amend chapter 30 to update stormwater management ordinance. Motion to open public discussion.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All right, would anybody like to be heard from council or public about amending chapter 30 to update their stormwater management ordinance? Seeing none, motion to close.
Motion.
Second.
Allison, motion to offer. Need a motion to
moved.
offer?
Motion.
Second. Allison, roll call, please.
Council members Chris Keefe,
Yes.
Koch,
Yes.
McHugh,
Yes.
Neff,
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Okay. Ordinance number 2021-05, amend salary ordinance number 2021-04. Motion to open discussion.
Motion.
Second.
Okay, anybody want to hear about this? Simply changing just the PD staff to elevate the salary to $25 an hour for our part-time workers.
And adjusting, doing the stipend for DJ.
And the supplement for DJ. Thank you, Allison. Any other discussion? Seeing none, motion to close.
Motion.
Moved.
And we
Second.
have a second. Thank you. Motion to offer.
So moved.
Second.
Allison, roll call, please.
Council members Chris Keefe,
Yes.
Koch,
Yes.
McHugh,
Yes.
Neff,
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. New business council committee reports, finance. I'm going to ask Teresa Casagrande to fill in for Councilman Banahan at this point.
Yes, Mayor. I want to give an update on the budget process that we had talked about over the last couple of meetings. As per the Finance Committee's direction, myself, the Borough Administrator, has completed appropriate reduction recommendations on the initial draft that was provided to the governing body. I forwarded that document to the CFO, Colleen Lapp, who's presently working on revenue projections and capital improvement and debt management scenarios for the Finance Committee. We still have no direct guidance from the state of New Jersey regarding the impact of the recent federal stimulus bill on our 2021 budget. However, I believe it's going to be fair to say that more than likely we won't see any relief in this year's budget from that money, especially related to the fact that we're not getting it directly because we're not large enough to get it directly. So I'm inclined to think, unless we hear otherwise in the next few weeks from the state, that will have more of an impact on our 2022 budget. The Finance Committee will be asking department heads to prepare and present a 5-year capital plan after the 2020 current fund budget is adopted. We've all been working on a 5-year capital plan from a larger perspective, but having the department heads for each department come in and present that to the Finance Committee and then ultimately the governing body as a planning tool is something we will undertake this year. So that's pretty much, hopefully, I'll have something else on the next workshop on an update to the budget and anything we have from a draft perspective. If once it gets through the Finance Committee, would go to the full governing body prior to that or a follow-up meeting.
Okay, thank you. Personnel, Councilman Chris Keefe.
Thank you. We are in the process of vetting a new assistant CFO. Our assistant CFO gave notice to pursue new opportunities, so we thank her for her years of service. And that should be coming down the pike pretty soon. And I think that's it for personnel.
Terrific. Thank you very much. Planning and zoning, Councilwoman Koch.
Well, the zoning board's been pretty busy, and as a result and as a response to the potential demand, the zoning board has scheduled additional meetings for the rest of the year. These meetings will take place on the third Thursday of the month. This Thursday, April 15th, there will not be a meeting, but residents can look on the borough website to see whether or not the meeting's been canceled. But to meet the demand, we have these meetings in queue. For the planning board, the next meeting is April 20th. At that time, plans for the new DPW will be introduced. On to rec. Spring camps and sports are underway. Also, registration for summer camps have been released. The schedule has been released. You can go to the recreation website and find out all the information that you're going to need. Rec had a virtual egg hunt. More than 200 bags of eggs were distributed to residents. It was very successful, and DJ has posted a lot of pictures on our Instagram account. And the spring walking challenge was a huge success. It raised over $500 for a local charity, and there will be another walking challenge within the next month or two. And that is it. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much, Betsy. Thank you. Police Fire OEM, Councilman McHugh. Michael.
Sure, thank you, Mayor. Police, looks like they're getting back to regular numbers. They answered over 700 calls. Fire, I'd like to thank them. They did over 15, they did 15 calls. They're demoing a new app for a new iPhone or phone app for responses. They did a drill, a live fire drill. So I appreciate them staying on their toes, staying up to date. And also would like to just acknowledge the centennial of the Women's Auxiliary, 100 years of service. And on behalf of the council, thank them for their service. I know some of those women personally. I know they make a lot of stuff happen over at the fire department. Finally, I'd like to, stick with the COVID numbers. Our numbers are starting to dwindle. They're looking better. We're losing some. We're at 58 active. And also the chief is looking into potentially when vaccines open up for everybody, potentially coordinating with the VNA again to actually do some vaccines in town. He's been coordinating with the schools possibly as a possible location, but we need to look into some logistical issues and legal issues about that. But I appreciate the chief always being proactive throughout all of this. And that would be a great way to see us through. So, and that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mike. All right, and entering DPW and borough facilities, Councilman Rodriguez.
I'd like to readdress the brush facility. No, I'm kidding. The facilities committee has been meeting. We took many of the recommendations provided by the planning board as it relates to the police department to account for, I think it was a 10-point letter. We've tried to factor in as many of those things as we could into an updated design, which will be presented in due course to the public and then to the council. So I just wanted to let people know the update there. And then I believe at the next planning board meeting, we'll do a capital review of the DPW site and building, which I encourage everyone on this call to dial into and participate in, because we're only going to get the best result if we have folks engaging in the topic. Just looking down, I don't think we've got any other updates. Back to you, Mayor.
Thank you very much. Thank you. All right. Introduction ordinance. Ordinance number 2021-06. Amend chapter 30, section 5.5, the affordable housing ordinance. Motion to offer. Betsy, you're on.
Betsy. She's muted, but I
Unmute.
saw
So
her.
moved, so moved.
We have a motion by Betsy. May I have a second?
Second.
by Council President Rodriguez. Allison, roll call, please.
Council members Chris Keefe,
Yes.
Koch,
Yes,
McHugh,
Yes.
Neff,
Yes,
Rodriguez.
All
Yes.
right. Hearing adoption will be
The 24th of May.
the 24th of May. Thank you very much. Okay, consent agenda resolutions 2021-85 through 2021-115. Are there any
Mayor,
changes, amendments?
the executive session, we're adding pending litigation that was added this morning.
Okay, pending litigation, fine. Any other abstentions or changes requested? Seeing none, motion to offer.
so moved.
Second.
Okay, Allison, roll call, please.
Council members Chris Keefe,
Yes.
Koch,
Yes,
McHugh,
Yes.
Neff,
yes,
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Okay, department reports, municipal clerk, dog license, police department, planning board, police department capital review report dated March 23rd. And I thank the planning board very much for their time and efforts on that account. And then the budget status. Motion to accept is presented
so moved.
in a second.
Second.
All right, thank you very much. Go to the borough. Please identify yourself by stating your name and address for the record. Please observe a time limit of 3 minutes. Motion to open.
Motion.
Second.
All right. Would anybody like to be heard? Go to the borough. House Lady 7. Ruth.
Go ahead, Ruth, you can unmute yourself.
Okay, about the leaf pickup. I realize I have seen some of the piles and they have been amazing, to say the least. But where you've got marked parking spaces, landscapers are piling leaves in the marked parking spaces. And I think number one, plus they put them out earlier. They put them out whenever they do the lawn. They don't care what our schedule is. But it's just, I thought parking spaces were sacrilege, whatever the word.
Sacrosanct? Yeah.
Yes, that's good. Thank you. I mean, isn't that some kind of a violation to block a parking space?
Oh, it's not a violation, Ruth, depending on where, where people have access. We generally try to do a education campaign, and we will continue to do that, asking people who have lined spots near their house to do their best to put the leaves not in a lined parking space. Many times there is room between them to do that. In some areas it's limited, but we'll get that word out again to remind people.
When the landscapers sign up for permits, I don't know if you charge them for permission to register with the town, but do you give them any kind of a schedule?
Absolutely.
Yes. We
Allison
give
does an
them
amazing job of that.
We give them the calendar. They get color. Betty Amber Ruby created a zone color coded with all the dates on when it can be done. And she reiterates to them that it must be adhered to. But when they get their license, they do pay a yearly fee, and they are provided any information that we have.
Great, thank you so much.
Well, welcome. Anyone else? Seeing none, motion to close.
So moved.
All right.
Oh, I see a hand.
Oh, there's one hand.
I don't see a hand.
No, it was
Oh,
there.
now I
Maybe
see
it's-
it.
There we go.
Okay, Pete, go ahead.
Yeah, hi, Pete DeChesney, 107 Park Lane. Just to reiterate with what Ruth just said, a couple of weeks ago, somebody on our street, a landscaper, put brush out, and my wife had a conversation with him and said, you can't put it out for another 3 weeks. And he said, yeah, I'm aware of the schedule, but it doesn't work for me. And the homeowners only get a warning, so I really am not going to follow the town schedule. So education is a great thing. But when you have that sort of, and then another woman was walking her dog, and she had the same exact conversation with them, and they were pretty much indignant that they were not going to adjust their schedule to fit our schedule. So education is great, but enforcement needs to be, whether it's on the landscape or the homeowners, I don't know, but that's got to be a key thing going forward if we're going to be serious about it.
Legally, the enforcement has to go against the property owner, but we have put out warnings, and for those that do not comply with the request by the zoning officer, we do intend to give them a second warning and issue summons as needed, unless there's unusual circumstances.
I mean, I hate to penalize a homeowner, but you know, the attitude from the landscapers is basically, yeah, it doesn't work for me. The town doesn't have any teeth in it, so bothered. But that's it.
Mayor, you're on mute.
You got your sign up? Thank you. The other choice is to pull the license of the landscaper. So if the borough is able to ascertain that individual's name, we could certainly find them and have a conversation.
Thank you, man.
You're welcome. All right, anyone else? Zoom up and down. Seeing none. Are we good to close? Maybe motion close.
So moved.
Okay,
Second.
here we go. Thank you very much, everybody who came. We thank you for your comments and your participation. We will now be going to executive session, and action will not be taken. I ask that all borough council members please put their Zoom video on off as well as mute, and we'll see you on the other side.
Councilwoman Cox, you're gonna want to put your mute on your phone
I
there.
have to turn everything off. I just need
Okay.
to.
We got Councilman Rodriguez. We have a quorum. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Bye.